In this week's interview, I'll be sitting down with the president of the UANC party, Reverend Dr. Gunyai Muzarewa, and we'll be discussing what the UANC calls the 8 pillars of good governance. And we'll go over why the 8 pillars will radically change the trajectory of Zimbabwe's future. We'll also talk about the UANC's core values and why without these, nations fail. Links to this and many more podcasts can be found on our Facebook page, Instagram, YouTube channel, and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm here with Reverend Dr. Gunyai Muzarewa, who is the president of the UANC, and will be running in the 2023 Zimbabwean elections. We're here to discuss the 8 pillars of good governance, which is one of his many running platforms. Pillar number 1 is democratic governance. I'd like to ask you, how does fear affect a nation's democratic governance?
Fear has really affected the people of Zimbabwe in many ways. In fact, it's funny that you ask that question because it is clear that both those who are in power and those who are not in power are now filled with fear and for different reasons. And so people cannot really vote confidently or comfortably because they are intimidated, and those who intimidate know that or are afraid that someone might retaliate, and at the end everybody is afraid because we may have a situation where the elections become null and void because of too much violence. So fear in Zimbabwe is really interfering with the whole idea of democracy, because when people are assured that when you are in the ballot box, what you do is known only to you, is your vote is your secret, it no longer applies in Zimbabwe because people are intimidated. They are told, because of their ignorance, they are told, whatever you vote, however you vote, we're gonna know. So you better vote according to what we tell you. That is not democracy. That is a major departure from democracy.
The second pillar is macroeconomic stability. How do you plan on stabilizing this economy?
Macroeconomic stability is a very important pillar, but it can only work out if we enforce the rule of law in the country. For business people to invest anything in Zimbabwe, they should have a sense of security. They should know that they are protected by the law. They know that if there's any reason to seek legal protection, there are courts of law that are independent. And so macroeconomic stability can only be a reality if there is rule of law. And my government intends to insist on the rule of law. My government intends to insist on the separation of the 3 branches of government, namely the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary.
Let's assume that the government accounting books are clean and politicians aren't making themselves rich. If there really is no money to pay the civil servants, how will you find it?
There is money to pay civil servants because I know that because this country is rich. I also know that unfortunately this country is full of thieves, and my government, given its integrity from cabinet level to everybody, my government insists on honesty and so forth, and so we will make sure that the values of accountability, transparency, and participation, all these are our tools, are our values that we bank on when we run a government. And so there can never be a situation where an employer employs say 5,000 people and not have a plan to pay them. So any responsible government, and mine is going to be one of those, knows that they know how to get the money, or where to get the money. In this case, we know that the minerals in this country and the other sources in this country are big sources of money that we can use to pay not only civil servants, but even services like housing and healthcare and education. We know that those monies are available. The problem in Zimbabwe is not money. The problem is the mismanagement of our monies in Zimbabwe. This is what we know we can correct day one.
On to manufacturing. We know that Zimbabweans are intelligent and they are hardworking. How will you bring in manufacturing jobs without exploiting your labor force?
Most companies determine the salaries for their workers based on what they make. So salaries will be determined on productivity. However, I know that we may have some companies from outside the country who may have other levels of pay, but if we should have government-run factories, I want to assure you that they will be commercially run so that they are productive, and because they are productive, the salaries will be fair, again based on the productivity of the activity.
So how do you prevent the employee from being exploited?
One thing that government cannot do, it has happened here before, and that's why the industry in Zimbabwe collapsed. Government cannot tell private sector what to pay their workers. That is a mistake. The companies will hire people, will announce their salaries and so forth, and people will decide where they want to work. And if they are happy with the salary, they'll take the job. If they are not, they will quit. But government cannot legislate salaries. Just like sometimes we make a big mistake for government to lay, for example, a minimum wage for certain, say for domestic workers, because some domestic workers make a lot more than others based on the employer. For example, my headmen, the guys who take care of my cows, they make more than the teachers, but that's my choice. I do that because I've stayed with the guys, they're good workers and so forth, and so that is that. But government cannot tell me how much I should pay my worker, because really, strictly speaking, that's none of their business. In terms of protecting labor in Zimbabwe, there are unions that take care of that, and those unions, I think, are well organized. And if they become unreasonable, like I said, this is what happened when government started to dictate on the industry how much they should pay. Companies closed and quit. So that's just a big mistake. It doesn't happen like that.
Right. In terms of agriculture being your sixth pillar, how do you plan to return Zimbabwe to its breadbasket glory days?
We are going to actually excel the glory days because now that there's more technology, now that there's more know-how among our people, we have all these colleges that train farmers. All we need to do now is to equip these young people who graduate from colleges like that, and then equip them with what they need to do the farming, because they already have the knowledge. All they need is a piece of land and the equipment. So what we are going to do is to encourage young farmers to really engage in farming the best way they know. And of course, one of the problems is cash outlay. So government should have will have arrangements for young farmers who are getting started in the industry to be equipped to get started. We don't think that the farmer should always go to the bank to borrow money every year. I think the farmer should be such that he has enough money saved to get started the following year, and so forth and so. So they are not totally dependent on government. But government has a critical role. Way back in the glory days you mentioned, government always had provision through the banks to lend money to farmers, and farmers would be able to pay back upon harvest. That was done, and so it was a good arrangement. We can do the same, but I'm saying we can do better because now our markets are better, our knowledge is better, our skills are better, and our market, I think, are broader now. Way back, we didn't used to export tobacco to countries that we do export now. Things have changed.
In terms of the service industry, how do you plan to revitalize that industry? And where will you succeed where others have failed?
Most companies in Zimbabwe are independent, they are partnerships and so forth and so on. The colleges that we have, a lot of them are training secretaries and accountants and so forth and so on. So with all these trained people, we would encourage Zimbabwe companies to create good working conditions in their offices, because if an employee has good treatment at work, their productivity is going to be better than if they feel that they are working for nothing. So we will encourage, set a good example with the civil servants. Our civil servants will be well paid, and we believe that paying them well will encourage them to perform better. And so private companies will also have to follow suit. Again, we cannot legislate how they run their companies, but if the government sets a good example, I think that will that will send a signal to other companies that are trading in Zimbabwe to treat their employees well.
Our pillar number 8, natural resources. How do you plan to make sure that Zimbabwean gold, for example, benefits Zimbabweans?
Excellent. Our hope in rebuilding our economy is based on mineral wealth in the country. And so we are going to, first of all, we are going to re-examine all the licensed miners to make sure that they are paying the royalties that they are supposed to pay to government. We are going to also do a thorough audit of all the operating mining companies to make sure that they are registered. Those who are registered will be advised to do so within the first 30 days of our administration. Beyond that, it will be a steep penalty, if not revocation of the license. But having said that, let me say that because this country is so rich in minerals, we are just going to encourage big companies, mining companies, to work in conjunction with government in mining, so that whatever they mine is not exported as raw material. Whatever they mine should be processed here. We believe in beneficiation, so to speak. Whatever is mined must be processed here so that the goods, the final product, then is exported. That way it fetches a lot more money than if we send a hunk of earth, assuming that is just iron, when actually it's loaded with the diamond and the gold and so forth and so. Minerals hang together. So if you see a hunk of iron, don't think it's just iron. It may be loaded. So, but if these are processed locally, then all these hidden things will be exposed, and of course there's wealth there.
And more jobs.
More jobs, of course, yes. More jobs, more money.
And
Thank you.
It stops them from taking the lithium from the soil and then selling it back to us as our own cell phone that we have to pay incredible rates for.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I agree, 100%.
Okay. The next one deals with taxation. It's pillar number 4. I wanted to save it for the end. The roads, the toll roads, so the Matai Road and such that have tolls, seem to be in fairly good condition. It seems to me that because the roads have been tolled, there's been money taken from people that travel those roads, that the money is then going back into the road in order to make it serviceable, make it drivable, Will this same approach work if brought into the cities and the suburbs? Basically, will you use taxation to improve the roads?
No, taxation money is used by those who collect the taxes. Now, in the city, not everybody, of course, is a driver, not everybody owns a car. So, but in the city, say the city council collects money for whatever reason, for whatever excuse, they collect money. They collect money. What we need to see is where that money is going. There's that question of accountability. The councils that collect money should demonstrate, should actually report to the public how they are spending money. They can spend that money to put street lights. They can spend that money to remove trash from our homes. They can spend that money to make even water cheaper or to make ZESA cheaper. They have to show us where the money is going. Gone are the days where there was no accountability. In my administration, there's going to be accountability. The city councils are going to have to give the people a full account of how they spent our money. They have to be reminded, it's our money, we have given them authority to spend. So we have a right to know. So the question of accountability that I mentioned earlier, and the transparency, those are important questions. And by the way, lack of these two is what has led the country to go to pieces the way it is. There's no accountability.
It's very true. It's very true. Right, so that's it for the 8 pillars. We're going to talk about the 7 core values while we still have power. Okay, so aside from the politics and your pillars of good governance, there are surely ways in which you and your party live their lives and operate from day to day. Here comes the question. In essence, what are the core values you and your party live by? You can just give an example of 1 or 2, or if you want to give an example of 10.
The most important core value that I would like to discuss initially is human rights. My party, our party, the UANC party, believes that the whole existence of government is to take care of people, to take good care of people. And so, in order to assure human rights observation, we have to we believe that our government should put in place ways of making sure that every human being feels safe when they travel in the streets of Harare, for example. We will then have to retrain our police not to be fierce to the people, but to do their work, namely to protect the citizens. Now, human rights has been a big issue in Zimbabwe because of these abductions and the crime that is happening everywhere, fights in domestic situations and so forth. And those issues don't go anywhere because once you take it to court, once you take it even to report to the police, if the policeman is bribed, then that's the end of that. So human rights is a very important value that we will insist upon. There cannot be democracy without human rights.
Okay. So what is the difference between human rights and civil liberties? And can you give an example of each? I know you just discussed human rights.
Right. Human rights, one of the rights that a human being may have is the right to express themselves. So our government will protect the freedom of speech, for example. I know there are some people who say stuff that nobody would like to hear, but they have freedom to say that. So freedom of speech in Zimbabwe needs to be protected and promoted because, for example, the media, if our journalists are afraid to speak the truth because they may be thrown in jail or they may be abducted by government, then we are really defeating the purpose. Freedom of speech is an important article. In fact, There are some religions that believe that the whole purpose of speech is to speak the truth. So we encourage our journalists to feel that they are free in our government, in the UANC government. They are free to report whatever they have seen. They may actually bring to the government's attention whatever is going on, and the government may have to take action on. For example, we have had so many Zimbabweans crossing over to South Africa. Okay, they are in search of food, they are in search of livelihood, and sometimes they get in trouble over there, or even they get killed over there. You don't hear anything from our government to talk about anything. They just ignore it. That means really this government doesn't care what happens to you when you are trying to pursue whatever may give you livelihood. So freedom of freedom of movement, freedom of assembly. That's another one. Of late, I've heard that some people, some groups, clerical groups of ministers gather together to pray. When they are praying for peace for this country, they've been arrested, accused of having gathered without permission to gather. Listen, when there's a freedom of assembly, people can assemble, can pray, and pray for this country. They can also assemble and that's celebrate a birthday. Now, there's too much restriction. We are told that we believe that that good government governs less.
Do you think the citizens of Zimbabwe will be able to struggle through the nation's rebuilding as long as the new government is transparent with its finances?
I think that once the people have voted the UANC in, they are expecting that what we promise in our manifesto is going to be delivered, because our history is that of delivering what we promise and promising what we can deliver. So honestly, people are going to expect a difference, and they will experience, they will enjoy the difference that we bring. In fact, at this time, I've heard some people who say, your manifesto is so good that we wonder why you have been away. Why have you been quiet with all this good stuff? Mm-hmm. And so they are looking forward to the government of the UANC, because we are people of integrity.
So what is your answer to that question as to why you've been away with all this good stuff?
Yeah, I've been away for one reason, and that is maybe the same reason that about 4 million Zimbabweans are in diaspora. I've been away because I was working, and now I've come back because this is my home. So I've come back, and I want my home country to be as good as other countries, especially say countries where we have been. There's rule of law. There's a clear separation of powers. The judiciary, the executive, and the legislative. There are clear powers of. There are checks and balances in the structure, in the government structure, and also, of course, I've come back because I know I have something to offer to my country. My country is struggling. My country is suffering. My country people are suffering for things that I know I can contribute to. I cannot do it alone. I'm going to invite Zimbabweans who care for their country to join hands with us as we try to improve on the situation, the economic situation. The corruption must be eliminated, and all these abductions, the human rights abuse must be reduced to zero, and all that. So I've come back to make a contribution to a better Zimbabwe.
Servant leadership is a word used by almost every politician. Can you define for us what real servant leadership is and what it is not?
Real servant leadership has to do with knowing that when you are appointed, for example, to presidents, to the position of president, it's not that you are the most important person in the country. You have been given the most important assignment. So you are supposed to serve those who have appointed you. You're supposed to be at their disposal, so to speak. So for me, servant leadership means really you understand the needs of the people and you are going to make sure that their needs are met. You don't have to do the physical work yourself, of course, but you make sure that you put things in place to make sure that that the people who have put you in place receive the benefits of your leadership. Servant leadership does not mean that you sweep the streets. The other day I saw the president of Zimbabwe picking trash in the streets on a Friday to demonstrate humility. I don't know what he was demonstrating, and the reason I laughed is because that's a joke for me, because the president takes people from the offices and take them in the streets to clean up the street when there are hundreds of other people in the street who are looking for work. Why don't they employ these people who are looking for work? Matter of fact, the people in the street are the people who throw trash in the street. The people in the offices have trash cans. They put their trash in the cans. So I don't know what that's going on, but you know what? He thinks he's doing a wonderful job, and I have nothing to do with that. All I know is I'm not going to be picking trash when there are people who are looking for work, including picking trash.
Okay. All right. Zimbabwe is not at war, but you speak of the urgent need for peace. Can you please explain what you mean about the need for peace when there's no war going on?
Yes, it has been said, peace is not just the absence of fighting. Peace is the presence of justice, a feeling of security in people. So in Zimbabwe, as I said earlier, a lot of people are afraid. And once people live in fear, there's no peace. So in Zimbabwe, whatever elements are bringing unrest, like the violence, the intimidation, the corruption, all these things really reduce our feeling of being at home. So real peace comes with real justice. In this country, once there is a sense of justice, a sense of security, then we can talk of peace. But as long as those don't exist, there is no peace. Peace is not just about fighting somebody. You can be at war with yourself. You can be at peace with yourself. And of course, you can also be at war with other people and at war with yourself. So peace is an abused word because people have always associated that with just the absence of fighting.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for.
I want to thank you. Why are you asking me all these questions? What do you think? Tell me what you think,
Grilled
mister.
chicken. Grilled chicken. All right. Now we're good. Thank you, Dad.
All right. Welcome.